You better buckle up because we're getting controversial today. Hello and welcome to Frightopia. My name is Fright and today I will be explaining my opinion of the best horror movie of each year since 2000. I'm going to be doing this list to give you some movie ideas since spooky season is fast approaching. I will be choosing these films based on their overall enjoyment and overall greatness. So I'm going to be assuming that you guys will disagree with me and probably roast me in the comments. So I am ready for that. I think. So yeah, I'm going to do my best to explain like the kind of general plot of these movies without spoiling the ending or anything that important. But if you think I'm going to spoil something about a movie you are planning on watching, you can feel free to skip ahead. I will have timestamps in the description, so I got you on that one. So yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you like the video and if you want to see a video where I rank the ones that are before the year 2000. So without further ado, I'm Fright from Frightopia, and let's get right into the video. Starting off in this year of 2022, we have Jordan Peele's Nope. The film follows a pair of siblings named Em and OJ, who are attempting to capture evidence of mysterious and unexplainable events that are happening around their ranch in California. Due to some financial problems, they have to sell the property to Jupe, who owns a kind of carnival thing nearby that profits off of this phenomenon. Now, I did have trouble putting this over the recent success of Prey, which was Hulu's biggest streaming premiere ever, which is not only huge for reviving the Predator franchise, but it's also big for the horror franchise in general to get a streaming achievement like that. But Nope is just a visual spectacle that you have to see for yourself. I've even seen reviews that compare its impact on the genre to that of Jaws almost 50 years ago, which is crazy. Now, do I agree with that statement? Well, it's a little too early to tell, but it's a great movie nonetheless, and I really think you should check it out. I would also like to give credit to Hatching and The Innocents, which are two very great films from Europe as well. 2021 was a rather disappointing year for horror. Pretty much all of the disappointing sequels and reboots are to blame. However, John Krasinski's A Quiet Place Part 2 was not one to blame. It was honestly an excellent sequel that was on par with the original. The film follows the remaining members of the family who are forced to leave their home to venture to a safe haven. This proves to be quite a challenge since they are carrying a newborn child with them as well. It greatly utilized suspense and sound design, and it greatly expanded on the world of the Death Eaters, which is just terrifying. Psycho Goreman was my second place pick for this year, simply because it's just a great, lighthearted, comedical horror movie, which I recommend you check out. 2020 was also another year that was really disappointing for the horror genre. However, there were two films that stuck out to me, and the greatest of the two was His House, directed by Remy Weeks. The film follows a southern Sudan refugee couple who escapes Sudan and is housed in an English housing district. Their house has a strange evil to it, and despite all the odd and dangerous circumstances that happen, the couple refuses to let it scare them away. The acting performance of Wunmi Musaku and Sope Dirisu really helped to elevate and humanize this movie. They really helped show how trauma-stricken and determined this couple was. It definitely is one of the more underrated horror films of recent. And in second place for this year, I gave it to Invisible Man, which was a great and haunting reimagining of the Invisible Man trope. Okay, 2019 was a tough one. The year gave us films such as Midsommar, Us, Ready or Not, which are all great films. However, in my opinion, the best horror film in 2019 was Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse. Though not as mainstream and successful as movies such as Us and Midsommar, I think that The Lighthouse stands apart from those two through its slow and burning pace. It follows two lighthouse keepers who are living on a lighthouse on a mysterious New England island as their sanity slowly slips away. The amazing acting performances from these elite actors, along with just the great story in general, really just makes the viewers feel like they're going insane along with the characters, not knowing if what we were seeing is real or not. Ari Aster's Hereditary is not only the greatest horror film made in 2018, it is one of the greatest horror films made of all time. First of all, Toni Collette's performance was amazing and just one of the best performances I've seen in recent history. She plays a grieving mother whose family is slowly falling apart after the passing of her own mother. The family soon discovers that they've inherited something rather sinister, and strange occurrences follow them and terrorize them, no matter where they are. This film is especially terrifying and just amazing due to the small details that Ari Aster and his team includes within the film. For example, there are just small details, whether it's a cult member out in the open or some symbol that you missed, which really makes it a rewatchable movie because you see something new every time. The film also includes a lot of scenes that are intense and suspenseful that just end with an amazing payoff. It's just it's a masterpiece. 2018 also had some solid horror films such as A Quiet Place, Mandy, and The House That Jack Built. Of course, for 2017, we have one of the most important horror films ever made, and of course, I am talking about Jordan Peele's Get Out. It is honestly just extremely difficult to put into words how brilliant of a film this was. One main reason is the performance of Daniel Kaluuya, who plays a black man named Chris, who goes on a weekend retreat with the family of his white girlfriend. The family acts rather uncomfortable and superficially nice to Chris, and says stuff like, well, this.
By the way, I would have voted for Obama for a third term if I could.
And I'm not going to spoil anything, but Chris soon finds out that there's a little something sinister going on. The film not only has its fair share of scary and very awesome looking scenes, it is also an important commentary on the systematic racism in the United States, and it helps deconstruct it for people like me who do not experience it on a day-to-day basis. Once again, this is a film I highly recommend you watch. It is not only a staple to modern horror, but of all of modern cinema as well. 2017 also gave us some great films such as the remake of It, as well as the criminally underrated Creep 2. For 2016, we have one of the best zombie movies in modern horror history, which is Train to Busan, directed by Young Sang-ho. This South Korean film follows a father who is trying to salvage his relationship with his daughter as a zombie apocalypse breaks out in the country and affects the train that they are on. This film doesn't only have an exciting and gripping plot with a bunch of cool zombie effects and kills, it also helps to humanize the characters. You see, like in most zombie films, characters are more of people that you don't really care about and eventually just become zombie food. But in this film, they give time to each character and kind of gives them their own characteristics that really make you root for them. It's definitely one of the few zombie films that humanizes the characters and can actually make you cry, especially at the ending, which it'll hit you hard, I'm just letting you know. And my honorable mention for this year was The Green Room. And for 2015, we have It Follows, one of the more unique films you'll see on this list, and one that is certainly one of my favorites. The antagonist of the story is, well, an STD. The STD is an entity that relentlessly and slowly follows somebody, no matter where they go, and it never stops. If they reach their target, they kill them, but if the target has sex with somebody else and passes on the STD, the entity will then follow that person. Another interesting thing about the entity is that it can take the form of anybody. So throughout the film, I remember me as a viewer, I'm looking through the background because literally anybody could be the entity. This film has it all. Some great jump scares, great suspense, some great characters, an amazing score. Like, this is one of the best horror scores I've heard in a while. It tackles social problems such as sexual assault and victim blaming, which is unfortunately still very prevalent in today's society. 2015 also had a great contender in the film The Witch. For 2014, I had to give it to an extremely underrated film, as well as one of my personal favorite films, Creep. Yes, I know The Babadook is generally more well-known and liked due to its creepy nature and jump scares. However, I just don't think the film has aged that well compared to Creep. Creep is just carried by the magnificent Mark Duplass, who just plays an amazing Yosef. Yosef is an unhinged man who hires a cameraman named Aaron to film like a day in my life sort of thing for his unborn son. Yosef tells Aaron that he has a tumor and doesn't have much time to live, so his son will never really get to meet him. Because of this, Aaron decides to stay at the cabin and film Yosef throughout all of the odd stuff he does. And when I say he does odd stuff, he does some odd stuff. These requests get more and more bizarre, and Aaron starts to get more than he bargains for. The film not only mastered the found footage format, it excels in showing just how dangerous and unhinged a person can be without relying on things such as jump scares, and it rather relies on great acting and great writing. As well as obviously The Babadook, I also recommend The Taking of Deborah Logan, which was a great film for 2014. For 2013, we have James Wan's The Conjuring. If you don't know what The Conjuring is, it is a paranormal film that follows Ed and Lorraine Warren, a paranormal investigator and demonologist couple. They are helping a family investigate a farmhouse when things just get a little out of hand. As the Warrens, as well as the family that lives in the farmhouse, start to uncover more and more of these hauntings, it just gets worse. The film just has some great suspense scenes and jump scares. It's just an awesome watch, honestly. It is definitely one of the better paranormal films, if not the best, of the 2010s, and it is safe to see why there's a lot of sequels. I do want to give credit to the 2013 Evil Dead remake as well, for not only being an original remake, but for being like an actually good remake, which you don't see a lot of these days. You really don't. For 2012, we have yet another paranormal film, Sinister. The film follows Ethan Hawke's character Ellison Oswald, who is a struggling true crime writer who uncovers a snuff film. The snuff film is of a family and no one knows who's behind it, so he moves into the house of that family and tries to uncover the secrets behind it to write a really good book and just get back on the map, I guess. Once he moves in, he discovers tape of similar nature of different cases, as well as some paranormal happenings around the house. Sinister is not one of the greatest films of the 2010s. However, when they show the scenes with the tapes, those are just terrifying. Like, they did a really good job on that. I will give them that. I also do recommend 2012's VHS, which is a rather interesting watch, I should say. 2011 brought us one of the best horror comedies of all time, which is A Cabin in the Woods, which is a commentary on the classic horror movie tropes. It follows your generic group of horror movie teens who go to, well, a cabin in the woods. It turns out that a government agency is orchestrating all of the events of the film in the hopes that the group will die through classic horror movie tropes. However, this group of teens sees through the government's lies and decides to fight back, and all hell breaks loose. Quite literally, hell breaks loose. This film not only has a pre-Thor Chris Hemsworth, but it also has a comedy duo of Richard Jenkins and Brad Whitford, they are just so funny in the film. I highly recommend you watch it. It also has one of my favorite scenes in horror movie history, which I'm not going to show you it because I don't want to spoil it because it's amazing. Like, when you see it. Also for 2011, Your Next is a solid runner-up. For 2010, we have another horror comedy, which is Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. The film follows, well, Tucker and Dale as they are mistaken by murderers by a group of teenagers when one of their friends almost drowns and Dale saves them. They think that Dale is like kidnapping her, so they run back to save her and they all accidentally die in a bunch of just like funny and gruesome ways. But with all of them dying in ways that make it look like they were murdered, it just further perpetuates the belief that Tucker and Dale are murderers. I honestly recommend you guys check it out. It's just honestly a good time. Close behind Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, I had Insidious, which is a movie that has its fair share of scary moments. For 2009, we have a film that was greatly underappreciated in its time and has since garnered a lot of attention and credit that it really deserves. Of course, I am talking about Jennifer's Body, which stars Megan Fox. She plays Jennifer, a popular high schooler who gets possessed and starts feeding on all of the horny boys that she can lure. And her friend Anita, who is played by Amanda Seyfried, tries to stop her. Due to factors such as it kind of being ahead of its time, as well as some just terrible advertising that misled audiences into thinking it's a different type of film, the film originally didn't have much success, but has grown in popularity throughout time. 2009 also had some great films such as Zombieland, Orphan, and in my opinion, one of the most underrated sequels of all time, Saw 6. Okay, 2008 had some bangers, so the list was hard. 2008 had films such as Cloverfield, Martyrs, The Strangers, and even Like Mungo. However, for me, one film stood above the rest, even slightly above Like Mungo, and that one is the Swedish film Let the Right One In. For those of you who are unaware, and I don't want to spoil anything, it is a great film that is centered around a young bullied boy who gets a new neighbor who turns out to be a vampire. It is a horrific tale that deals with subjects such as the breaking points of friendship and love, and it is honestly one of the most emotional horror films you'll ever see. When I say you need to watch this one to actually experience it, you need to watch it. It's really good. For 2007, we have, in my opinion, the greatest found footage film of all time, which is the Spanish film Wreck. If the Blair Witch Project set an example for found footage films in 1999, then Wreck blew it out of the water 8 years later. The film follows a TV reporter named Angela along with her cameraman, who gets trapped inside of an apartment along with some firefighters when she is reporting on a sickness. It turns out the government had quarantined everybody in that building, and those people started to become like zombie-like. The whole film is just Angela and everybody else trying to survive against these zombies. If you do plan on watching this film, I do recommend you watch it with subtitles and you don't watch like the dub version or the USA remake called Quarantine, because it just doesn't do it justice. You have to watch it while it's in Spanish. It is so good. Just the overall great acting in the film, along with the realistic camera shots, just really makes it a terrifying, amazing watch. 2007 also had a solid found footage film in Paranormal Activity, along with some good films such as Trick or Treat and The Mist. In 2006, we have yet another brilliant Spanish film in Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. The film follows 11-year-old Ophelia, who is lured into Pan's Labyrinth during World War II. The labyrinth is just a magical place full of mythical creatures, some dangerous, some not. And most of these creatures are terrifying. Just look at this guy. Imagine being a kid and stumbling upon this movie. Anyways, in close second, I had The Host, made by legendary director Bong Joon-ho, as well as a German film called Requiem. For 2005, we had the legendary British film, The Descent. This film follows a group of female friends who decide to go exploring in underground caves in North Carolina, because yes, exploring caves is always a great idea. When they are down there, they stumble upon some weird paintings as well as evidence that other people have been down there, and they soon come face to face with some horrific humanoid creatures. This film is not only a great story about trauma recovery and broken friendships, it also has some very terrifying jump scares along with just some brutal endings, because there's two different endings, I think, in two different versions, and both of them are hard to watch. It is. This is a film that I really suggest you watch. It is a staple of the horror genre. And in 2005, as a runner-up, we have Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects. Just like we had 2 Spanish films in a row, we are about to have 2 British films in a row. Of course, for 2004, I am talking about one of the greatest, if not the greatest, horror comedy of all time, which is Shaun of the Dead. The film follows Shaun, whose boring and childish lifestyle is interrupted by the zombie apocalypse. He is joined by his mom, his best friend, and his girlfriend, who he has to man up and protect. The film isn't only hilarious due to the comedy duo of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, it is also somewhat touching. It tells the somewhat familiar story of a person that is not ready to grow up and suddenly has to say goodbye to the comfortable life they once had. Once again, it's an amazing film that I recommend you check out because its comedy still holds up today. 2004 also gave us the legendary Saw, Hellboy, as well as the Dawn of the Dead remake. 2003 was yet again another disappointing year for horror because it was pretty much filled with disappointing sequels and reboots. However, Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses was a much needed dose of crazy that we didn't know we needed. The film follows a group of teens that get stranded at a gas station, and when they agree to stay at the house of some rather interesting individuals, it's probably the worst decision they ever made. This family of sinister and unique individuals hold them hostage, and one by one they pick off each member of the group in pretty interesting ways. When I watched this film for the first time, my main impression of this was, wow, this is really Rob Zombie, but in a good way. The characters in the family were just outlandish in a good way, and it made it very entertaining, and the film also had some very edgy cuts and editing, which it was a very unique film, to say the least, that I'm glad I saw, so I really recommend it. And for the honorable mention for this year, I have the only solid sequel, Ju-on the Grudge 2. In 2008, we have yet another British zombie film, 28 Days Later. The film follows Cillian Murphy's Jim, who wakes up from a coma 28 days after a zombie apocalypse starts. This zombie apocalypse is called the Rage Virus, and it is started when a bunch of protesters break into a government facility that is testing monkeys that have this rage virus. They let the monkey free and, well, zombie apocalypse happens. Jim joins up with a group of survivors who seek out a military base, and when they do reach there, the military members aren't as hospitable as you would expect. It's an extremely unique film, and the director filmed on like a very cheap camera to kind of exemplify how grungy the zombie apocalypse would be in real life. And whenever zombies are on screen and they attack, it is especially terrifying because they're fast moving and the cameras shake a lot and they do like fast cuts, so it really gets your blood pumping. It was also extremely impressive how they got London to be like empty for this shoot. It looked so cool. Like some of the opening shots were just amazing. 2002 also brought some great paranormal films such as Ju-on the Grudge and The Ring. In 2001, we have David Lynch's Mulholland Drive, which is not the biggest horror movie, but it has some horror aspects to it, so we're gonna count it. Some people call this the greatest film of all time, so of course it's gonna be at the top of 2001. The film follows Rita, who just got in a car accident and lost her memory, who meets Betty, an aspiring actress. To not spoil anything, the pair tries to discover who Rita actually is, and spoiler alert, it isn't as easy as it seems. The film is honestly just shot beautifully, and it is one of the most mind-boggling films you can watch. You really have to experience this for yourself. This is the greatest film I put on this list, so if you're gonna have to see any of them, you'd have to see this one. In 2001, for our honorable mentions, we also had a mind-boggling film in Donnie Darko, as well as Bones, Scary Movie 2, and The Others. Let me see if I remember this. You like Huey Lewis in the News? The early work was a little too new wave for my taste. When Sports came out in '83, I think they really came into their own, commercially and artistically. The album had a cool, crisp sound and a new sheen of consummate professionalism. They really give their songs a big boost. Yeah, no, I don't remember the rest. But, yeah, for 2000, we have American Psycho. This Sigma Male classic is one of my favorite films of all time, and I will argue to the grave that it is a horror film. For those of you who do not know what the film's about, it follows Christian Bale's iconic character, Patrick Bateman. Patrick Bateman is the sort of self-obsessed, charming businessman at day and sociopathic, murderous serial killer at night type of guy. We follow Bateman as he becomes more murderous and deeper in delusion as he's being investigated for the murder of one of his co-workers by the green guy. William Dafoe, my bad. To me, this film is so great because it leaves so much to be questioned at the end. Like questions like, did Patrick really do all the stuff he just did? How sane, if sane at all, is Patrick? And is Patrick really Patrick? It's this sheer ambiguity of what happened and what this character experienced that just makes it so much more rewatchable. The film is also a sort of dark comedy that satirizes the wealthy businessman of the 1980s and 90s. Anyways, watch this film. It's awesome. One of my favorites. If I were to recommend any of them, it would be this one, the greatest one, Mulholland Drive. But any of the ones on this list are good, so yeah. Anyways, in a close second, we have Requiem for a Dream, which is just a heartbreaking movie. And in third place, we have the hilarious Scary Movie. So yeah, that was my list of the greatest horror movie of every single year after 2000. Do you agree with my picks? Did you disagree with some of my picks? All of them? Let me know in the comments. I'm actually really interested to see what you guys thought. I am also extremely thankful for the support on this channel recently. It's been growing so much, and I'm very excited to see what we have in store for the future. I also wanted to let you guys know to stay tuned for my next video. I will have a pretty big announcement then. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I also want to thank you guys for being so patient in between uploads. I'm currently moving into a new apartment, and once I get that fully set up and we hopefully have internet and school starts rolling back around, we'll hopefully be back on track. I don't know. And I am also planning on upgrading my setup in the future, so I will no longer be filming on an iPad and be using a lamp as my lighting. So that's also a bonus. But yeah, if you made it this far, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And once again, I'm Fright from Frightopia, and thank you for watching.